What makes you instantly lose respect for someone? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. When someone gets irrationally angry at someone for something that the accused had very little control over. For example, a customer getting really angry at a member of staff because of something the company they work for did. Shouting at them isn't going to change anything. It's not their fault and you look like a jerk. Answer. Also, people who judge way too harshly. I was on the bus today and another car got way too close and the driver dodged and bumped into a parked car. We were going very slowly on a crowded road. He goes out to check damages and comes back in, apologizes and drives on. Then this meanie on the phone said loudly enough so he could easily hear it, "This fudge driver is so shoot at driving a bus." I really fudge wanted to yell at that cunt. Even if it was his fault, which it was not, it's still just one bloody mistake. Not something that gives you the right to be a meanie and call him shoot at his job. Story 2. When their complaints against a politician aren't merit-based. It's one thing to say, I don't like Obama because 90 of his economic recovery went to the top 1. It's another to say, I don't like Obama because he's a Muslim that dislike Israel. Story 3. When someone tries to further their political moral cause by putting down another cause. I can't believe you care about the homeless cat population when there are homeless people too. I dislike that crap. It's my biggest pet peeve. You've instantly lost my respect and I'm not going to listen to your opinion. Just let your cause stand on its own 2 feet and don't put others' passions down to make your point. Story 4. Honey, God put you on this earth to make babies and you won't be a real woman or know real love until you put that womb to work. Edit. To clarify, this doesn't make me lose respect because it's a child-free parent issue. I don't care who does or doesn't have babies. It's just the creepiness and bizarre nature of each part of that statement. I am not an incubator with legs. I am a real woman, and yes, I do know real love. Answer. Yes, I'm 21 and female, and know for a fact that I will never want kids. The older I get, the more sure I am of this. I had a pediatrics rotation for nursing school and absolutely dreaded being around any kid from the age of 3-15. I dislike talking to them and pretending to have that motherly, fun-loving side. Also, I think pregnancy is gross. No offense to anyone, just my personal opinion. And childbirth is the most horrible-looking thing I've ever witnessed, both cesarean and natural. People always laugh when I tell them this and they go, "Oh, you'll change your mind in a few years." It frustrates me to no end. Some people don't want kids, that's how it is. Story 5. A few years ago, there was this guy I was pretty good friends with. We started working at the same company at the same time, and since we were both from other countries, we were drawn to each other, even though we were completely different people. Anyways, after we had been friends for a few months, he started telling me about witchcraft and how he's in contact with the moon. Personally, I don't believe in things like that, but I decided to respect him. It didn't make me lose respect for him. Since we both worked in IT, we both had a lot of time on our hands. I decided to spend all my free work time on Reddit while he started to read up on conspiracy theories. He kept telling me about how corrupt the world is and how we're being controlled. Usually I like to listen to people and I'm pretty understanding of how people see things, so that's what I did. But then one day we were both on the bus and he seemed like he wanted to share a big secret with me. I'm telling you, man, the moon landing was fake. I've never lost respect for anyone quicker than that. He later on told me about chemtrails and a lot of other stuff, but we ended up drifting apart. This story probably wasn't that good, but I feel like I've written too much to delete this, like I usually end up doing. Story 6. When they blatantly disregard something that is a big deal for you, but seems tiny for them. For example, I suffer from bad nyctophobia, fear of the dark for those who don't know fancy lingo, and my boyfriend completely supports me. He'll know why I'll freeze up in a dark hallway randomly, or ask him to go ahead even if it's just to walk 5 steps to a light switch. He'll even cuddle me extra tight at night if I start getting too on edge, because we sleep with the light off for his comfort, and I've always had a nightlight. My mother, on the other hand, let's just say that if I was scared of snakes, she'd be holding one in my face whilst I was tied down asking, "Does this make you nervous?" She's even stolen light bulbs from me just to make sure I'm without light. She never respected my phobia and always saw it as a childish thing that I should have grown out of years ago. I have many a horror story about her, and not just on the topic of my phobias. Story 7. People who don't have their own shoot together or can't get their life on the right track, but have advice or guidance for everyone around them. Okay, unemployed, divorced and bankrupt Aunt Mary. Let's hear what you think everyone should be doing with their lives and how they should be living. We're all dying for some of your expert wisdom. Answer: I see a bunch of comments telling this guy to learn from these people's advice, but I have to say my aunt is one of these people, and it drives me up the wall. She does not offer good advice at all. She has been fired multiple times, gotten in legal trouble for using her students to help around her house, decided to flip houses, so she bought a trashy one, and now has to live in it because she lost her first house, and has my 70-year-old grandpa do the vast majority of work on that house. She has 2 wildly overweight dachshunds because she just leaves their food available to them 247. She was a cyclist for like a year, but she gave it up because it was too hard. Still, this woman has the audacity to call me a quitter when I stopped taking piano lessons as a kid. She constantly is trying to give me job advice and advice about my pets, and yells at me when I don't listen to the ridiculous things she tells me to do. I certainly have learned from her shoot mistakes, but I haven't learned a thing from her advice. Story 8. Speaking as a Christian, do as I say, not as I do. Complaining there are no good chivalrous men in the world, walking around with holes in clothes. I am not racist, but making excuses on why you can't finish a paper in a group project despite being given 2 weeks to do it. Example, like, sorry, can you do my part because I am in a different town and my computer's not working? Yet they are using an iPhone. Story 9. People who dive headfirst into relationships, dropping everything and everyone in their lives in order to be with someone they barely know. Basically, people who can't handle being alone. So when they finally find someone willing to put up with them, they leave everything in order to nurture this doomed relationship. Story 10. When people make comments like, Chris Brown could beat me any day, he's beautiful. A 20-year-old girl in my class said this within the first semester. 3 years later, and the comments like that continue to flow. Glad she made the decision to not befriend her. Pretty easy. Story 11. The night that marriage equality was made law in the US, a guy on my Facebook went around on other people's posts and made comments like, this is disgusting. I'm so disgusted right now, etc. Then when people called him out for being a rude shoot, he started posting about how he'd lost all his friends and started trying to make his dislike comments seem sympathetic to other people. I didn't like the guy very much to begin with, but darn, that whole thing made me lose all respect for him. Story 12. Suppressing discussions because they don't fit your ideology. Problems can only be solved if you open your eyes and look at them, especially when it's uncomfortable. Being open-minded means considering all options and being able to change your opinion, no matter in which direction. Story 13. When they let their pets get away with non-desirable behavior simply because she is too cute, the amount of owners I've come across with that mindset astounds me. Then they get mad when their dog doesn't listen to them. Story 14. Texting and driving, especially in a school zone. The only time I have ever disliked anyone was when I saw a classmate going 120 in an elementary school zone during the time of day where all the kids are leaving while texting. That is simply unforgivable. Story 15. When a man assumes that all gay men are attracted to him, honey, you aren't tall, handsome, old enough for me to be attracted to you. Stop reminding me that you have a girlfriend. Also, blind radical feminism. Equal rights? Sure, I'm here for that. But if you think trans women are female imposters and believe that gay men have more rights than women because of their gender, get away from me. And people who let any mild form of power go to their head. You're a manager at a retail store, not the fudge chief of staff for the White House. Stop talking down to your coworkers. And lastly, people who are unable to see things from someone else's point of view. There's no point even arguing with them. I just lost any trace of respect immediately. Edit. This one is kind of petty, but if you consider yourself a legitimate fan of Iggy Azalea, I cannot take you seriously. Story 16. When someone is rude to wait staff. Also people who act like the whole world revolves around them. Like in traffic jams, they say shoot like, what the fudge is everybody doing? Why are they all here? Same reason you are, babes. Story 17. Parents who treat their kids like pets. Parade them out in front of guests, make them spin around and do a trick, and then kennel them maybe with a TV all day. Sorry, I'm a huge gamer and tech guy, but if I have a kid, making their childhood as awesome as possible becomes priority one. Story 18. People who cut in lines. The high school lunch line was the biggest fudge shitfest. People would just cut towards the front of the line if they found somebody they were kind of friends with to cut in front of. Obviously, everybody else in the line had no say in the matter. If you think your time is more valuable than everybody else's, then fudge you. Story 19. A person speaking disrespectfully about their SO. Example, she knows she better have dinner ready when I get home. Or like today at work, some of the staff were talking about a customer paying for their purchases with an EBT card and walked out to a Mercedes-Benz. You people have no idea what their finances are like. Maybe they've fallen on hard times, lost their job, etc. Story 20. When someone says something racist, homophobic, sexistic, and cries about their right to have a different opinion, when someone points out that they're being rude, yeah, you can have a different opinion, but why defend being racist, homophobic, etc. when you could be a decent human being instead? And even worse than that are people who claim to be very open-minded and progressive, say something racist, and refuse to step back and think, shoot, did I? Like, bruh. If someone points out that you said something shoot, maybe you did indeed say something shoot. Everyone slips up and says something really awful from time to time. Just apologize and try not to do it anymore. Story 21. When they send you a friend request on Facebook, you accept, and then you realize they spend most of their day posting statuses about every goddamn thing they're doing and how they feel about it. Or they buy into the Obama is a Muslim craze, either or. Story 22. One time I received an email with details about my mother's funeral. I requested a half day off to attend, and the manager hemmed-hawed about how the job came first, demanded to see the email, and then asked if it would be a big deal if I didn't go. That short conversation drained any respect I had for him. He revealed that he was heartless, crass, and viewed those under him as complete scumbags who would do anything for a few hours off. Story 23. People who just blindly follow gender roles and expect others to do the same, or just using gender as an insult excuse. I remember my friend brought a new girl to a bar we were at, and they both ordered chili cheese fries. He asked for a fork and wouldn't start eating until the server brought one. So the girl started making fun of him. Don't be a private area, just eat with your hands. She was using a fork though, so he said, you're using one. And she said, I'm a girl though, I'm allowed. Instantly lost my respect for her. Story 24. Confirmation bias. Claiming something is true or typical because they personally experienced it or heard a few people talk about it. EEG, on a post about the Dutch version of Survivor on Reddit, when a scientific article is posted, the sample size was 20. That's not enough to come to a valid conclusion. Reddit on Dutch Survivor show post, this is totally a fact and proves a lot about society. Also, people that describe themselves as nihilists. Story 25. It always irks me when someone I meet can't empathize with someone that isn't like them. For example, Senator Rob Portman opposed gay marriage until his son came out as gay. I'm happy that he is now in support of same-intimacy marriage, but I don't understand how he couldn't empathize with, or at least consider it, until it happened to a loved one. Along the same lines, it bugs me when people choose to base their opinion on someone on one defining characteristic. I could choose to dislike Rob Portman because of his inability to empathize, but it's unfair for me to think that he isn't a good person based on that entirely. I'm mostly just happy he chose to love his son, no matter his intimacy orientation, more than political gain. Story 26. When a guy treats his girlfriend or wife like shoot, and you can obviously tell she is scared around him. I met a couple the other day that was like this. Every chance he got, he would belittle her and just talk so negative towards her. She would go the point to where she would just stand there, then he would get on her for that. I brought up the old, how long have you two been together? And he replied, 17 years. In my head, I felt so bad for that woman. Story 27. Yeah, people with a victim complex. The world is out to get them and owes them everything. Why can't we all just see how amazing they are and bow down to their gloriousness? Clearly, we'll never be as fantastic as them, and it makes us jealous. Therefore, we have to do everything in our power to bring them down and make their lives miserable, because they only ever make perfect choices, and it's the rest of the world's fault for the bad things that come their way. Obviously. Story 28. I can admit when I'm wrong, but I expect people to actually prove me wrong. I'm not just going to take their word for it before I change my mind on something. Why would I operate on the assumption that I'm wrong as soon as someone else thinks I am? Story 29. The worst for me are the compulsive liars, the ones who just make up meaningless stories to make themselves look better. No, Russ, you did not bang 3 chicks in your dad's ski cabin last December. They always tell you they've done the coolest shoot and have the coolest plans already lined up, but are never actually doing anything awesome. Story 30. Even worse when they're aggressive about it. They'll ask you what your stance is on a subject and then condescend to you about how flawed your reasoning must be, yet fail to support their own argument in any way. Story 31. This literally happened last night in an argument with my dad. Straight up, he told me my opinions, feelings aren't valid, and me disagreeing with him, not directly following his advice, is giving him shoot. Story 32. I got screamed at by a customer because the new manager got rid of little paper wine bags. She actually screamed and caused a scene. At the end of her yelling, I said, "How am I supposed to do anything about that?" She said, "Well, whatever happened to Premier Customer Service?" I said, "I think I do a pretty good job. Have a nice day." She left and forgot her groceries. I fudge dislike people. Story 33. Also, people who judge way too harshly. I was on the bus today, and another car got way too close, and the driver dodged and bumped into a parked car. We were going very slowly on a crowded road. He goes out to check damages and comes back in, apologizes and drives on. Then this meanie on the phone said loudly enough so he could easily hear it, "This fudge driver is so shoot at driving a bus." I really fudge wanted to yell at that cunt. Even if it was his fault, which it was not, it's still just one bloody mistake. Not something that gives you the right to be a meanie and call him shoot at his job. Story 34. I used to have a supervisor who would decide what the problem is, then ask the employees about it and scream at them in front of God and everybody if they didn't say something that perfectly matched up with the opinion he formed before gathering facts. He actually got forcibly moved from placement at my site for doing this to me because one of our clients called the state manager and complained. Story 35. I actually do that. Not in the sense that I'm not interested, but in the sense that I get uncomfortable if I'm holding eye contact with someone for too long. I still make sure to make eye contact in small, repeated intervals, but I just simply can't maintain it. Story 36. Amen, this is my Mill. She can talk about herself for hours, and I mean really mundane, boring shoot. Like everything she's had for dinner for the last 2 weeks, and how exactly she cooked each meal. And then normal stuff too, like herself, her work, her siblings, random conversations she's had with random people. She thinks she's really funny and likes to recount random shoot she said. She even snaps at my husband when his attention strays, glances at his phone, the TV, etc. She'll yell at him to put his phone away as if he's a child. But the second me or him manage to get a word in, she gets physically agitated, squirming and looking around and literally staring at her phone as she scrolls through Facebook. She'll have sometimes no response whatsoever, and sometimes generic responses in a dead monotone voice like, "Yeah," or "Huh." She'll get visibly annoyed and antsy until there's a half-second break, and then she'll divert the conversation back to herself, usually with a rude transitional sentence like, "So anyway," as if your 30 seconds about yourself was a huge and rude disruption. Story 37. This is one that has been annoying me more recently. My best friend's gotten pretty bad about it. She chose a very dramatic and stressful career, and I chose a very placid office job, so she obviously has a lot more stories to tell. And that's fine. I'm genuinely okay being her sounding board during our weekly calls, but when I actually have a story for once, she's just obviously not listening. I can hear her over the phone messing around on the internet or doing things in the background, and she doesn't really engage in the conversation or ask questions, and it's obvious that she hasn't really absorbed what I said. Then she just jumps straight back into her stories like I was interrupting her. That hurts that I spend all these hours listening to her rant and rave about her life, and she can't even pay attention for a 3-minute story. I know she loves me and all, but her active listening skills have just vanished over the past few years. She more or less knows it too, which kind of makes it worse. She's described us as an unequal relationship and jokingly apologized for being a bad friend, but she doesn't actually try to change anything. Story 38. I dislike the opposite of this just as much. If you're against every popular opinion because it's the popular opinion and you think yourself so enlightened, you're not a person with whom I want to associate and spend my time talking. Story 39. I go to a private Christian school, and this happens a lot. Actually, last year, there was a Bible teacher who challenged this kind of thing. He tried to bring all other perspectives in. The result was administration receiving complaints that he was indoctrinating them with liberalism. Unfortunately, he left the school to take philosophy and theology classes at Oxford, and he is on the track to being a teacher there. I'm happy for him, but wish we had more teachers like that around here. Answer. I went to a private Christian school. I had been in a Christian school and setting for my entire life. At one point during high school, I started really getting interested in alternative ways of thinking that weren't necessarily encouraged or promoted. I started to really love science, art, philosophy, and other religions. I quite vividly remember claiming to one of my teachers that God, Allah, and Yahweh We're all the same person deity with distinctly different identities and personalities due to perspective. I was promptly shut down by the teacher I was talking to and 2 other teachers who I was told to talk to. Story 40. I dislike it when they do this, but at the end includes something like, I am not looking for an argument or conversation about this. They are just so committed to their opinion, they won't even accept a comment about it, yet they felt the need to voice their opinion. Story 41. This is what I think of helicopter parents. The sort that superimpose their own dreams on some hapless children and live vicariously through their accomplishments. Maybe little Billy meant it when he said he disliked soccer, but no. Billy's dad knows it's for the boy's own good, and Billy's mom is just so supportive. At least that's what all the other moms tell her. Story 42. It's difficult. For near 2 decades, your child is a retarded piece of barely functioning flesh that will gleefully eliminate itself the moment you turn around. It takes a really open-minded person to take seriously the opinions or emotions of something that was perfectly okay with eating soap a couple of years ago. Story 43. For years, I've wanted to tell my sister-in-law that her kids are not hellspawn. She sees them as absolute brats, which they are, but it isn't hard to spend time with them and teach them how not to be brats. If your kids know you only give them attention when they're bad, they'll always be bad. Story 44. Yes, this one does it for me too. I'm from Toronto, where our last mayor, Rob Ford, of smoking crack while in office fame, was a bit of a portly gentleman. A lot of people just make fun of him for his weight when there were so many other crazy issues with his time in office. Story 45. I honestly wonder WTF people are doing on their phones so much. Like a girl doesn't shut the fudge up on Twitter or Facebook, and when she's with a friend or SO, she just stares at her phone entire time. Like, WTF? Are you just trying to act like you're a likable, fun person to the internet? Story 46. Since high school, there was always this classmate who always talked me. He always acted like a male body part to me for no reason at all. We have a lot of mutual friends, but we personally don't talk much to each other, but we end up being in a lot of the same friend groups. Any chance he gets, he likes to call me a meanie, the name of my hometown, or he'll say something related to how he doesn't like me. One time he took things too far by whipping a jump rope at me back in gym class. I had a U-shaped bruise on my calf for a few months. That was the one time I got pissed and started whipping my jump rope back at him like no tomorrow. Keep in mind that I was thin but also physically fit and toned in high school. I made friends easily, and my high school didn't have actual bullying, AFake. Generally, I just ignored his insults and moved on with my life. Now I have transferred into his university with a lot of mutual friends. One of my best friends is his roommate, and so I hang out at their apartment a lot. They have 4 roommates. 3 of them are actually my friends. I thought he would have grown up by now, but now he says things like, "Get the fudge out of my apartment," or "Get out of here, Ryan. Nobody likes you," or "Ryan, stop coming over." All of this shoot is just one-liners that are thrown randomly in the middle of conversations. I tried having normal conversations with him weekly one-on-one when we were in the same room, but he clearly never wanted to carry it on. All my friends are bamboozled as to why he acts this way toward me. Fudge you, man. You can act as nice as you want to, all those other people, but if you consistently act like a male body part to me for no reason, after all of those free chances I gave you to treat me as an equal, nothing you will do will ever make me respect you. Also, keep being creepy and get touchy with other guys' girlfriends. When your girlfriend isn't around, it'll backfire on you one day, jackass. Story 47. I feel scared and alone, and I'm having a hard time facing these feelings. I just want to crawl up into a little ball and just disappear from the world for an hour. Sorry to all the servers I respond awkwardly to. Sometimes I feel like being backed into a corner by the world, and all I'm doing is trying my best to get through the day. Story 48. People who get a dog because it's the popular thing to do. People who decide that taking proper care of the dog is too difficult and fail to give it the love and attention and care it needs. It doesn't necessarily even have to be abuse. Edit. For the people saying that neglect is abuse, I agree. When I was writing this, I was thinking of abuse in physical harming and neglect as a sort of mental destabilization. Story 49. I really dislike this. If you have to say you're a nice or good person, you probably aren't. If you really are a nice person, then it goes without saying. I've known too many people who feel the need to tell people that. Story 50. I had lunch with a friend of mine about 6 months after her wedding. She showed up with another guy. One of the biggest WTF moments of my life. What happened to all that talk of how you had found the one and how perfect he was? The fact that he loved you so much he made a lifelong commitment to you? What about all that money I just spent on your wedding, hens parties, gifts, dinners? Can I have some of that back? Haven't spoken to her since. I just decided we had nothing in common after that. Story 51. Agreed. I'm an extremely easygoing guy and don't hold many grudges at all. When I found out my GF of 5 years was cheating, I was both broken and resentful of her. I've never felt such angst for a person before this incident. Story 52. Yes, exactly. I live in a town that has a large chunk of people like this. They are the same people that start sentences with, "I'm not racist, but..." There is also about 10 guys in my town right now that have started flying the Confederate flag. I live in Ohio because we were so part of the Confederacy. Story 53. There's a distinction that I think a lot of people miss, that there's a difference between respecting someone and treating someone respectfully. Certainly respect is earned, but there are very few reasons not to treat people respectfully. Story 54. If you believe this, and the people upvoting you believe this, next time you witness some shithead customer giving a service worker a verbal thrashing, tell them off. Just lay it out there for them and tell them what entitled pricks they're being. It might change their outlook, and it will make the worker's day. People always express these sentiments, but never has anyone stuck up for me or a coworker when we encounter these shoot heels. Don't let your friends and family treat others this way. Say something. They can't, or they'll lose their job. But you can, and it can make a difference. Story 55. Yes, 1,000,000 times yes. If you're on a first date, pay close attention to how she treats your server valet movie theater employee. I once read that Jack Welch, former CEO of GE, would hold all of his job interviews for management in nice restaurants. The potential employees were thrilled to eat in a nice restaurant and would often let their guard down a bit. What they didn't know was that Welch wanted to see how they were treating the waitstaff. If the potential employee was rude to the waitstaff, Welch knew that he didn't want them working as a manager because they would likely treat their own employees that way too. Story 56. Are you kidding? You people work for a shoot wage because you are lower than us. I can walk all over you because you're literally nothing. JK, I make a living solely off of tips. I fudge dislike entitled customers. Story 57. I was going to say this, but in a broader sense. People that treat those who can't defend themselves or who are in a lower station in life poorly. If you have ever treated a waiter like shoot or an old person badly or a child, etc., you are a dirtbag to me. Story 58. Don't know about this one. It's great to be fighting for a cause, but some things are just more important than others. I've had many Native Americans, for example, tell me that they think the whole debate on using Native names or patterns is pretty insulting when the vast majority of Native populations are poor, uneducated, and neglected by the government. In other words, way bigger problems than some football team using their name. Problems that aren't at all in the media. Story 59. This. So fudge much. Or people who assume just because I'm talking about one issue at the moment that I'm not aware or ignoring other problems. Believe it or not, I am capable of being passionate about multiple causes. Story 60. Yes, I'm 21 and female, and know for a fact that I will never want kids. The older I get, the more sure I am of this. I had a pediatrics rotation for nursing school and absolutely dreaded being around any kid from the age of 3-15. I disliked talking to them and pretending to have that motherly, fun-loving side. Also, I think pregnancy is gross. No offense to anyone, just my personal opinion. And childbirth is the most horrible-looking thing I've ever witnessed, both cesarean and natural. People always laugh when I tell them this and they go, "Oh, you'll change your mind in a few years." It frustrates me to no end. Some people don't want kids. That's how it is. Story 61. I'll be 21 in a few days, and I've been getting the, "When are you having kid?" since I was 18. Just because my sister had her first at 19, my mother at 21, and my best friend at 19, doesn't mean I'm going to follow suit. I can live a full and happy life without children. Story 62. I once had a woman get shoot because I couldn't tell her exactly how many prawns were in her prawn curry. I would have loved to have pinged them at her fat head one by one. We'll count together then, you crazy jerk meanie. Story 63. Like getting weight loss from someone fatter than you? What you need to do is chew sugar-free gum. I was quoting Kevin James in a stand-up routine. My personal opinion being an overweight person is, I know how to lose weight and stay at a healthy weight. I just can't seem to keep motivation to keep it off. Story 64. To be honest, I haven't got my shoot together, but I like being there for people. I don't tell them what to do as much as advise them to the best of my ability. Aunt Mary telling people how to live isn't advising, it's controlling. There's a difference, I feel. Might be biased, Good girl. D. Story 65. I see a bunch of comments telling this guy to learn from these people's advice, but I have to say, my aunt is one of these people, and it drives me up the wall. She does not offer good advice at all. She has been fired multiple times, gotten in legal trouble for using her students to help around her house, decided to flip houses so she bought a trashy one, and now has to live in it because she lost her first house, and has my 70-year-old grandpa do the vast majority of work on that house. She has 2 wildly overweight dachshunds because she just leaves their food available to them, 247. She was a cyclist for like a year, but she gave it up because it was too hard. Still, this woman has the audacity to call me a quitter when I stopped taking piano lessons as a kid. She constantly is trying to give me job advice and advice about my pets, and yells at me when I don't listen to the ridiculous things she tells me to do. I certainly have learned from her shoot mistakes, but I haven't learned a thing from her advice. Story 66. I look like I might be some kind of far-right biker type weirdo. I'm so fudge not. It's ridiculous. People think I'm racist just based on looks alone rather often. When people out themselves to me by leaning in and starting, "Did you hear the one about the nigger who?" It's often unexpected based on their looks. It's always disappointing and disheartening. If I'm sober, I'll tell them I dislike that crap. If I'm tipsy, it's about 50-50. If I push the issue in front of others. Most of the racists who have tried to tell me nigger jokes do it very quietly like we're on some fudge secret team. If I'm really tipsy, there's like a 10 chance I'll push it all the way to a real altercation. Fudge you racist fuckheads. Just because I'm a big bearded fudge at a lumberyard doesn't mean I'm on your bullshit side. Story 67. I love when people say they don't believe in homosexuality. There are literally millions of gay people around. That's like saying you don't believe in raw tomatoes. Just because you don't like them doesn't make them cease to exist. Side note, I fudge dislike raw tomatoes. Story 68. Okay, what's with the holes in clothes bit? Some pre-ripped jeans are tacky, but some people are legitimately poor or have working jobs that require ratty clothes. This is something I'm really self-conscious of. I try to keep clothes repaired, but there's only so many times I can patch something before it stops working. I hope things get better soon. Story 69. What is wrong with holes in clothes? Yes, some people buy clothes with holes because that's what the fashion is, but some people can't afford to buy new things when their old stuff gets worn. Regardless, even if they're wearing clothes with holes because it's what is in, does not give you the right to judge them. Everyone is allowed to the right to wear whatever they want. Just because someone doesn't agree with it, it doesn't give anyone the right to look down on them. Story 70. I always find this to be a thing that boring people do. And when I say boring people, I'm referring the kind of people who don't really have any specific hobbies or activities they like to do outside of school and or work. Story 71. This should be at the top. When it comes to values, purposes, goals, etc., flexibility, or at least a capacity to exercise external thought, is incredibly important. Wasn't it Aristotle who said, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it"? I've lost a lot of respect for some friends who adhere to their own values to an unreasonable extent. Story 72. I think that the proper use of this prefix to a sentence would be to imply that the person has some extra experience in topics concerning children. But I dislike it when it is used in the context such as, "Oh, as a parent, I wish Obama would lower taxes and make Obamacare better." Story 73. I smoke. I dislike that I do. But here we fudge our... Anyways, I dislike even being seen smoking, let alone by impressionable children. And if I'm in a position where there's no way to hide it, I find the smoking area and keep it there. Took a lot of shoot for it last week when I was at the state fair and my friends were smoking and walking around, but I waited until we passed a smoking area and grabbed some bench. Edit, if there is no smoking area, I refrain. Story 74. I have a friend who will never leave a tip at a restaurant. Her and I worked at a salon where we really appreciated tips because they were our bread and butter. People in the restaurant industry really rely on tips even more than we did because they get low hourly pay. Plus, if they're a good waiter or waitress, they deserve a tip. They bust their jerk all day doing the same thing. It's just fudge rude. Story 75. Man, what a tool. I've been playing music all my life, and I'm skilled enough at a few instruments to play shows, but I will always encourage people to pick up an instrument and help them as much as I can with their learning. Never talk down to people when they're learning. Assume no knowledge of the subject because they probably don't have much. Answer. I have gotten a lot of people into guitar, drums, and classical percussion, It is crazy how some of them have had people tell them that their will to improve means nothing because they aren't already good at the instrument. The thing I tell anybody about learning an instrument is that it is hard. This is a message I sent to one of the kids I got into percussion. He wanted to quit after a few days because he was getting told he sucked by some of the people in the school's band. It is probably going to be one of the hardest things in your life to get good at. You are going to want to give up at some point because you see other people online and in person who are already good. But if you keep going, you will get to a point where getting better is fun. You will get better and better, and you will look back at yourself a year from now and say to yourself, wow, I am actually a musician. It is one of the most rewarding things, but you have to keep trying. Some people are naturally talented, but that just means you get to outwork their talent. The kid is now majoring in music education and is way better than I, or any of the people who said he sucked, have ever been. He is probably the most humble musician I know and is going to make a great educator one day. People who look down on those who are beginners at anything are one of the worst types of people because they lack a respect for their roots. Story 76. You guys ever tell the guy he is a gaping jerk? He may have no idea what he is doing is bad somehow. Sometimes, unless someone tells you something you are doing, you have no idea you are doing it. Like my girlfriend used to not be able to pronounce the word 11. She would say 11. I caught her saying that toward the beginning of us being together and kept poking at her about it, and now she doesn't do it anymore. Story 77. Like Sirasoli, when people do things they weren't subs to, and they tell me, I don't care. When they lie to my face, even when they were obviously caught, it infuriates me because they actually thought I was stupid enough to believe them. Story 78. Me. I think babies are weird looking and have never seen one that I consider to be cute. Her. You couldn't honestly say that about my kid show's picture. Me. I don't think your baby is cute just like all other babies. Her. You're a jerk. How can you say that about my child? Story 79. It's hard to explain, but you just know when someone isn't paying attention at all. They look around at anything and everything, just waiting till the topic of conversation they started finishes so they can bring up something else in their absolutely amazing lives. Story 80. I have the same problem. If I notice people get bothered that I don't really look at them, I will try to focus on a point just above their shoulder. It kind of makes it so it seems like you are looking at them. So add in a few head nods and respond to what they are saying, and so far no one has seemed bothered. Story 81. You should tell her about the article you read in Human Behavior about narcissistic people who subtly disrespect others in order to feel superior, then list the exact traits, but in comparison to your friend Todd or something. Answer. There's this girl in my neighborhood who just moved back to my neighborhood again. The last time she moved in, it was for most of the summer. She just moved back in right before school began, and me and her are the only ones at our bus stop. And TB, I don't like that girl. She's annoying, and she's always talking about someone behind their back. Another good reason as to why I don't like her is because back in middle school, all she did was talk about my girlfriend saying rude stuff. When she came to my neighborhood, she decided to be all nice and stuff, but she's very wishy-washy. I have to listen to her talk about her job at McDonald's and other stuff, or her friends or whatever, when we get off the bus. It's about a 10-minute walk to our houses too. She's pretty annoying, and we don't see eye to eye at all, just with common human pet peeves. We think totally different. Friday, she kicks me saying that she'll have early release every day, so we won't be riding in the afternoon. My heart jumps, then plot twist. Her dad changes his mind about it and doesn't let her. My heart drops. Dang, I'm stuck with this till next semester. I don't complain all the time or try to, but it really gets my goat. Story 82. To be fair, that's the exact same thing. You're not thinking for yourself. You're just repeating what everyone else is saying and adding a not every once in a while. There's nothing unique about that exact same thing. Story 83. I went to a private Christian school. I had been in a Christian school and setting for my entire life. At one point during high school, I started really getting interested in alternative ways of thinking that weren't necessarily encouraged or promoted. I started to really love science, art, philosophy, and other religions. I quite vividly remember claiming to one of my teachers that God, Allah, and Yahweh were all the same person deity with distinctly different identities and personalities due to perspective. I was promptly shut down by the teacher I was talking to and two other teachers who I was told to talk to. Answer. Don't the Quran and the Bible specifically and explicitly claim to follow Abraham's God? There are theological points such as who the last prophet was, whether Allahova decided to forgive fuck-ups and rather a lot of fine cosmological detail. But the fundamental point I wanted to make is that your teachers are wrong according to the definitions used by the Abrahamic religions. Anyhow, the Nicene Creed holds that the three aspects of God are separate entities, but still the same entity. I don't see how that can be accepted while still rejecting the notion that he might have more aspects. People really don't seem to like to actually understand their religion, as if thinking about things is discouraged, in case you come to the conclusion that people who don't worship in the exact same way as you aren't subhuman. Story 84. I actually dislike the opposite more. The people who post something blatantly wrong and you point it out to them, and they reply with something along the lines of, well, I was just trying to start a conversation. It doesn't really matter if it wasn't true. Story 85. I've worked in sales my whole life. I like to think I've never taken advantage of somebody. People have it in their mind that it's part of the job to dupe people to succeed, and that's bull. If you are honest, that builds trust, and people will deal with people they trust. I have been competitively successful in my sales jobs, and my methodology is simply determine the client's needs as best as possible and tell them their options with completely transparency. Let them make the decision, and then they will know it was the right one, and you'll avoid future conflict. It is effective. You don't have to be a slime ball. Story 86. A lot of the time that I've encountered the stereotypical nice guys, they usually are nice, but have some other factor that makes them unlikable, undateable, such as bad hygiene, poverty, immaturity, etc. They just flaunt that good part because it's all they have. Those guys that grumble about how they're always nice to girls but they never get dates usually have something else holding them back that they don't realize. Or their personality is too different. Story 87. 1. I had a guy cheat on me once. I only have proof of an emotional affair, but God knows what else happened. I admired him so much and loved him dearly before that. What a letdown. He was just trash after all. Bye-bye. Story 88. Or they crave attention, and no amount is ever enough. That's what it was, the two relationships where I was cheated on. I'd like to say everyone should leave on the spot if it happens, but life isn't so black and white. Story 89. I had a friend who cheated on his ex and bragged about having intimacy with at least 2 women off of Plenty of Fish a week. I asked why? Why even have a GF? He claimed that he loved his GF, but he got something out of the other girls that he didn't with her, like degrading them and doing stuff he couldn't do with his girl. I stopped answering his calls, texts, Facebook messages. He still sends me Facebook messages every month, sometimes asking why I suddenly stopped talking to him, other times saying hey and trying to spark conversation. A real piece of shoot, that guy, and he truly does not believe he is. All the while, back in his relationship, his ex would ask him not to hang out with me or dread possible future vacations that he might go on with me because I was the serial womanizer. I was the one who never had a girlfriend, so I was the untrustworthy one. Funny how that works. Story 90. I live in upstate New York. We are so fudge close to Canada, and there are stores that hang the Confederate flag. What the fudge? I can somewhat understand it being a Southern heritage thing, but you're in the fudge North Country, the only thing you're declaring is your racism. Story 91. I did this recently after hearing a woman speak condescendingly to a teenage mall employee. I am probably one of the least confrontational people I know, and my heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest. It's quite hard for an introverted person to tell someone off, so I'd at least encourage you to say something. If you really can't find the courage to tell them off, then tell the employee you thought they were in the right. Better yet, tell the employee and the employee's manager. Story 92. On the other hand, I think both those issues stem from the same problem, a lack of respect for native cultures and the problems they're facing. It might be baby steps, but enforcing the idea that native people aren't stereotypes and definitely aren't to be made light of as sports mascots will only be the beginning. Story 93. Yeah, or maybe seeing the homeless person reminded them that they had missed their daily shift helping in the soup kitchen this morning and were calling themselves an idiot. OP was too quick to judge. Story 94. My best friend is child-free for many reasons. She's afraid of childbirth, which isn't terribly uncommon, but people are shamed for mentioning it so they don't. She also knows she wouldn't make a good parent. She considers herself selfish in many regards because she knows having to lose all her personal time to a child would wear on her. Not everyone is meant to be a parent. Hell, there's a lot of people with children who should have made the same decision. She's nearly 30 years old and still has people tell her she will change her mind when she grows up. Story 95. Oh yes, they do. And they don't even see the problem with it. That they're effectively saying they've never loved anyone but their children. That any woman who is unable to bear children isn't a real woman, etc. Some people will even say things about, You have to make good insert religion name here, babies. Story 96. This mentality is very prominent in Islam, Catholicism, and southern version of Christianity. Also, many Latin American cultures think this way. Basically, men work and then go and enjoy life while women stay home cooking while pregnant. Story 97. Exactly. I've always looked at my addict mother and brother as the best role models I could ever have. They show me why you shouldn't do a lot of things that people say you shouldn't, like steal or take hard substances. It sticks with me a lot more if someone who has done something wrong tells me I shouldn't do a said thing because they have lived it and experienced the consequences and are fully aware on how better their life could have been if they were stronger and didn't take substances. Nothing scares you off substances more than your mom telling you she sees demons all around and spirits talk to her because her brain is fried from years of crack abuse. Story 98. That's why Bulbasaur isn't loved. You're not picking a starter. You're picking a difficulty. Bulbasaur, Squirtle are easy in the short term, but in the long term, you're shooting yourself in the foot because you can't get any good fire types, at least not for a long time. Charmander is hard mode for the first few gyms, but eventually he becomes a complete godsend, and you can get water plant types along the road with stats comparable to Venusaur and Blastoise. Having a Charmander is a bit like being a wizard in an RPG. The first few levels suck, but the payoff is amazing. Motherfucking Dragon. Story 99. I have gotten a lot of people into guitar, drums, and classical percussion. It is crazy how some of them have had people tell them that their will to improve means nothing because they aren't already good at the instrument. The thing I tell anybody about learning an instrument is that it is hard. This is a message I sent to one of the kids I got into percussion. He wanted to quit after a few days because he was getting told he sucked by some of the people in the school's band. It is probably going to be one of the hardest things in your life to get good at. You are going to want to give up at some point because you see other people online and in person who are already good. But if you keep going, you will get to a point where getting better is fun. You will get better and better, and you will look back at yourself a year from now and say to yourself, wow, I am actually a musician. It is one of the most rewarding things, but you have to keep trying. Some people are naturally talented, but that just means you get to outwork their talent. The kid is now majoring in music education and is way better than I, or any of the people who said he sucked, have ever been. He is probably the most humble musician I know and is going to make a great educator one day. People who look down on those who are beginners at anything are one of the worst types of people because they lack a respect for their roots. Story 100. Asperger's reporting in. Also dreadful with eye contact. I like to hope I'm showing my interest in other ways. Most people seem to think I'm nice, so I'm hopefully doing something right. But yeah, my eyes dart around so much I wouldn't be surprised if people thought I was on a mad cocktail of uppers. Story 101. There's this girl in my neighborhood who just moved back to my neighborhood again. The last time she moved in, it was for most of the summer. She just moved back in right before school began. And me and her are the only ones at our bus stop. And TBH, I don't like that girl. She's annoying and she's always talking about someone behind their back. Another good reason as to why I don't like her is because back in middle school, all she did was talk about my girlfriend saying rude stuff. When she came to my neighborhood, she decided to be all nice and stuff, but she's very wishy-washy. I have to listen to her talk about her job at McDonald's and other stuff, or her friends or whatever when we get off the bus. It's about a 10-minute walk to our houses too. She's pretty annoying, and we don't see eye to eye at all, just with common human pet peeves. We think totally different. Friday, she kicks me saying that she'll have early release every day, so we won't be riding in the afternoon. My heart jumps, then plot twist. Her dad changes his mind about it and doesn't let her. My heart drops. Dang, I'm stuck with this till next semester. I don't complain all the time or try to, but it really gets my goat. Story 102. I will look somewhere that isn't at the person speaking. I'll think, oh God, they think I'm not listening to them. I have to look at them. So I move my eyes back onto them and then immediately panic and have to look away again and repeat. Story 103. Don't the Quran and the Bible specifically and explicitly claim to follow Abraham's God? There are theological points such as who the last prophet was, whether Allahovah decided to forgive fuck-ups, and rather a lot of fine cosmological detail. But the fundamental point I wanted to make is that your teachers are wrong according to the definitions used by the Abrahamic religions. Anyhow, the Nicene Creed holds that the three aspects of God are separate entities, but still the same entity. I don't see how that can be accepted while still rejecting the notion that he might have more aspects. People really don't seem to like to actually understand their religion, As if thinking about things is discouraged, in case you come to the conclusion that people who don't worship in the exact same way as you aren't subhuman. Answer. On the topic of all three being an Abrahamic God, yes, this is what I meant. They are all deriving from the same identity, though they split based on perspective later. My teacher said that they couldn't be the same because humans have attributed different personalities to them based on religion, like the Christian God is loving and forgiving, and Allah is mean and punishing, etc. And I'm not too familiar with the Nicene Creed. I agree with you on your last point. I think people like their religion, but don't like to use complex or analytical thinking with it. Read the book, listen to your teachers, meditate on what you feel, but don't think for yourself or come up with new ideas. Story 104. It gets better with age, yes. Your child stops being able to die from being shaken or thinking that it can fly after watching a Superman movie and trying to jump out of a third-story window with a red pillowcase tied to its neck. But then the stupid just moves from basic to advanced. The offspring starts talking about not needing school and devoting its life to skateboarding. Story 105. It depends on what you're doing. Some products sell themselves, some are decent, and you can afford to build trust over time selling them. Some stuff nobody buys. And there are 100 slime balls out there, so nobody trusts anybody to begin with. Do you think you could sell timeshares without being a slime ball? Story 106. It doesn't matter that you were 16 or if you were 50, though. I recently distanced myself from a friend because we were at Walmart, and this friend who works in sales, which is like the most zero experience necessary job there could be if you have a university degree, was being so condescending about the middle-aged person stocking shelves along the lines of, how could you fudge up so much that you're doing that at like 40? Well, you just partied too hard $200K on an education you didn't need for a job a high school graduate could excel at as well. So really, that guy isn't really fair game for you to call an idiot. Story 107. I'm the exact same way. I really want a dog. I've had a couple of great dogs as a kid and I dislike to see them go. They were like family. Despite me wanting that again, especially now more than ever for companionship, I won't do it now. I'm too busy. The dog needs me to be there for it just as much as I need the dog to be there for me, hoping my responsibility now pays off later. Story 108. I distinctly remember saying things like this when I was like 15. Now I'm 23 and I try to pretend that me never existed. Now I treat all people like people, and the relationships I've gotten from that have been astoundingly good. So yes, unfortunately, people like that do exist, but they can change. Story 109. All you have to do is mention the thought of not having children, and many people, through a broad range of ages, go batshit. It's like the question, are you going to have children, is a rhetorical question. Story 110. Good, I dislike that racism shoot. The sooner we all get along here on the bottom and realize this ridiculous bullshit way of running the fudge, Earth is done for the benefit of a small percentage of humans, with money the better. We should be having orgies on Titan and dropping LSD while we sail past Mars. Not fudge around here in our own garbage, eliminate each other over make-believe shoot about magical beings, or brutalizing each other systematically at the behest of powerful conglomerate interests that by their nature remain free of direct liability. It's short-term solutions to long-term problems that got us here. I'm tired of the planet-wide poisoning of our little spaceship being written off. The center cannot hold. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. Story 111. Honestly, I respect someone in a pair of worn jeans more than someone in a pair of pajamas. At least the guy in the jeans took some effort to put real clothes on, and he either paid a lot of money or did a lot of work for those pants to have those holes. Story 112. I dislike those people. If I believe I'm right and I'm wrong, I want to know. Being wrong is like having food in your teeth. That shoot can be embarrassing. For some reason, I really like people who don't agree with me and challenge my worldviews with reasoned arguments. Story 113. I work with youth with Asperger's and autism in BC. We know eye contact is difficult. We observe body language a lot. There are ways to develop eye contact skills by being aware or how long you are doing it. Some find it quite helpful. Story 114. On the topic of all three being an Abrahamic God, yes, this is what I meant. They are all deriving from the same identity, though they split based on perspective later. My teachers said that they couldn't be the same because humans have attributed different personalities to them based on religion, like the Christian God is loving and forgiving, and Allah is mean and punishing, etc. And I'm not too familiar with the Nicene Creed. I agree with you on your last point. I think people like their religion, but don't like to use complex or analytical thinking with it. Read the book, listen to your teachers, meditate on what you feel, but don't think for yourself or come up with new ideas. Story 115. Don't forget picking the kids up from school. That's the hard part, is you have to put it in the schedule in the middle of the day. They also have to take out their card multiple times a day and speak with your manager. Story 116. In Utah, this mentality still exists. FTFY. Growing up in that culture is a serious mindfuck. Getting out of Utah is one of the healthiest things I've ever done, but I still have family members who tell me this every time we visit. Story 117. Yeah, I have those skills. I can hold eye contact for split seconds here and there. I try to make it known I am listening to them. I just can't lock eyes with someone for longer than a second. It feels, I don't know, I feel scared if I do that, like I'm really being looked at, threatened even. It makes me freeze, so I can't really do it if I want to carry on a conversation. Story 118. The thing about it is that it's been that way my entire life. It's perfectly normal and natural to me. You learn how to cope. Teachers giving a lecture. Oh, now he's looking at me. Better take notes. Story 119. See, but that joke is exactly what OP is talking about. I feel like so many people completely lose their memories of what childhood and adolescence were like. As an adult, I have the experience to know that just because I find something and identify with it doesn't mean that thing will make up my entire identity. But as a teenager, I didn't have that experience. And finding something that felt so much like me was a very overpowering thing. So we have an abstract issue. But where's the real problem? The problem comes in when we have to deal with the decisions and emotions of young people. To us, their reactions seem overblown and ridiculous, so we react to them dismissively. To us, it's only reasonable. To someone without the life experience we have, it's basically ridiculing something they feel deeply. To them, it literally does feel like it's not a phase, but it's who they are. And when we react this way, we're basically saying who they are is a joke instead of helping them to understand and work through what they're feeling. Story 120. There's a plethora of reasons why someone might be doing X or Y job. It's not anyone else's place to evaluate why you're there. Your clients or customers should only care if you're doing it well. I cooked for a while last year because I was waiting for my current job to start, and cooking had always, and still honestly is, if I could survive on it, been a dream of mine. I can't tell you how many people would ask me why I was cooking when they found out I had a degree or qualifications or whatever. Maybe I just love cooking. Maybe I was a single mom. Maybe I'm in debt. Whatever the reason. It's 1,000 not your job to tell me I'm in the wrong place. Also, that is adorable. Story 121. Oh, I believe you. My general outlook is that these guys have super low confidence in themselves, so naturally they would avoid doing what you just said. So the inevitable rejection doesn't hurt as much. Story 122. I think you need to feel safe and comfortable. Hey, I'm not autistic, but at times feel probed by certain people making eye contact. I certainly think you making people aware is awesome. Plus, I think telling people straight out is refreshing and also relieves the other person's anxiety as well. Answer. I am honest and open about it to people I know. Not all of them know I'm on the spectrum. Only my close friends do. I only bring it up if it becomes relevant. My workplace doesn't know I'm on the spectrum, though they probably should. I actually got told off by a manager in one of my previous jobs for not making enough eye contact with customers. And that was when I dropped the Asperger's bomb on her because I was like, haha, really? That she even noticed that shoot? That was downright creepy. Story 123. I'm on the spectrum. And I know the feeling. Something about eye contact lasting for more than a second makes me incredibly uncomfortable and anxious. I've learned to fake it by looking at people's foreheads instead. Public speaking classes are actually extremely helpful. But then the issue is I never know how long is appropriate to hold eye contact for. Story 124. I am honest and open about it to people I know. Not all of them know I'm on the spectrum. Only my close friends do. I only bring it up if it becomes relevant. My workplace doesn't know I'm on the spectrum, though they probably should. I actually got told off by a manager in one of my previous jobs for not making enough eye contact with customers. And that was when I dropped the Asperger's bomb on her. Because I was like, really? That she even noticed that shoot? That was downright creepy.